Good afternoon, I'm Aaron Weiss and welcome to my collection in Pasadena, California at the Flying A Garage. Happy to be with you and share the collection with you, and today we're going to go car by car and see what there is to see. This is my 1937 Cord 812 supercharged Phaeton. It's a car we've owned for probably about 15 years. I was fortunate to be able to buy it from a gentleman who had just won the national championship in Auburn, Indiana, and his wife gave him an ultimatum. It was either the car or her, and fortunately for me, he chose to get rid of the car. This is a really interesting car because we've never had to do anything to it. We've shown it periodically, and that's been it. We haven't touched it since I bought it. The car was designed by Gordon Burig. It is best known for several features. One is front-wheel drive, hidden headlights, and the pre-select shifting, because the transmission sits literally right below where my hand is. So unlike a car that has linkage, this one, when you're driving, you're going to select the gear you want to be in, press the clutch in, and you'll hear a little click, and there's a motor that will shift the transmission into the selected gear. The car is supercharged, and it is fast for a car that was built in the late 1930s. The other thing is Gordon Burig was known for a lower profile and a slinkier car, and so for cars that were of the late 1930s, this one is much lower and not as bulbous, not as bulky as the others. This is my 1937 Hork 853 Sport Cabriolet. Hork has an interesting story. As you can see, we have some rings here, which you normally find on an Audi. And Mr. Hork founded Audi. Several years later, he had venture capitalists that kicked him out of his own company, and he went on to Auto Union and founded Hork, which was obviously named after him. Then Audi went broke, Auto Union bought it, and he became president again of the original company that he had formed. The car has a 3.5 liter straight 8, and it will easily cruise at about 120 miles an hour. It has a 4-speed transmission, so it has the high gear for high speed, probably on the Autobahn at the time. The car has not been shown much. We did do a frame-off restoration after purchasing the car in Zwickau, Germany, brought it over, did the restoration, took it to Pebble Beach where it won a second in its class and the Elegance in Motion Award. So we were really stoked about that. It's also been to a CCCA Grand Classic where it scored 100 points. So it's a really beautiful car. The interior, the woodwork, everything is really luxurious, and we have these flags which we recreated, just a wonderful running car and a lot of fun. This is my 1929 Rolls-Royce Phantom 1 two-door convertible coupe. The first thing I'll share with you is that from 1921 to 1931, Rolls-Royce had a manufacturing plant in Springfield, Massachusetts. So this would be known as a Springfield Rolls as opposed to a Crew or Derby. The car was originally sold to a gentleman in New York who had it bodied with a 4-door sedan. And in those days, people had winter bodies and summer bodies. For that matter, some people still have summer bodies and winter bodies. At any rate, the first year the car was, summer approached, the owner went to the Rolls dealer, they pulled off the 4-door body, and a friend of theirs, Charles Fisher, who was president of the Cadillac Motor Division, made available a Fleetwood body. Most Springfield Rolls-Royces have Brewster bodies, which was a company that Rolls bought, but this particular car is one of only 2 that have Fleetwood bodies. So that is what makes it unique, and the fact that they never put the other body back on the car. So they must have liked the two-door convertible better than the four-door sedan, which is not surprising. You might notice that the Rolls-Royce emblem on this car is red, and in 1931, Henry Royce died, and the logos were changed from red to black to memorialize his death. So the car has a 6-cylinder. They're very reliable, very nice to drive. They're absolutely quiet, and it's just a lot of fun to take out on the road. It will move, but not much over about 65 miles an hour. So it's not something you're going to take to the drag strip. This is my 1933 Marmon V16 two-door convertible coupe. Only 2 American companies made V16s, and one was Cadillac and one was Marmon. Marmon had hired a gentleman named Knacker to be his chief engineer, and they had a dispute, resulting in Knacker leaving for Cadillac. Cadillac was able to bring their first car to market in 1930, and as a result of this engineer not being with Marmon any longer, it took Marmon an extra year to come to market, and he lost the market. So they only produced cars from 31, 32, and 33. And this is one of 76 remaining Marmons, and probably about one of 11 of the two-door convertible coupes still in existence. The engine, it has an aluminum block and is probably good for about 120 miles an hour. Unlike the Cadillacs that had dual carburation, these had a 2-barrel that sat on top of the engine. A much more efficient and a much better running car than the Cadillac 16s, and certainly more reliable. We just came back from Amelia Island with this car. It's been to Pebble Beach, it's been all over, and the previous owner toured it to no end. So it's really been a good driving car and a good showing car, and certainly a piece of American automotive history. This is my 1936 Mercedes 290 Cabriolet A. This was a price point car, so the big car that year would have been a 540K or a 500K. But so this was a car that maybe was not as ostentatious and very popular with upper middle class German. We bought this car in Germany as well, had it shipped over. It's a car that had ping-ponged back across the Atlantic most of its life. The most interesting part of the car was, although it was made in 1936, it never originally sold until about 1948. So during the war, it was hidden somewhere and was a survivor. A lot of German cars were appropriated by American Army officers, as was this one. And so at the end of the war, it got shipped to the United States. It's a really fantastic automobile. It's one of the few in the collection where if somebody said to me, let's drive to New York, I'd say, okay, let's take this one. It has a 3-speed transmission with an overdrive, which makes high-speed driving on a freeway possible. And it's a very simple car. It doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles to break and go wrong. It is originally green and dark green. And because of this reveal, you can see that it was originally a two-tone car as opposed to a monochromatic car. Those did not have the reveal. There's a lot of interesting details on the car. The Mercedes logo engraved in the headlights. It is a 2-door. It's known as a Cabriolet A. It has dual rear spare tires, and by and large, incredibly reliable car, and one that drives really, really well. It's still tight after all these years. So that's our Cabriolet A. These are my 2 Chrysler Town & Country Woodies. This is a 1942 barrel-back station wagon, of which they made about 1,000. And this is a 1946 Chrysler Town & Country 2-door convertible coupe. The interesting thing about the two is that this was the last model that was made prior to Congress having set a law stopping consumer production of automobiles, and this is the first model afterwards. So you can see, to some extent, a lot of the sheet metal and a lot of the styling is the same, because for 4 years these manufacturers could not allocate any resources to the production or design of automobiles, and then when they could, there was so much demand from all of these GIs coming home that they had to produce cars in a hurry, and they used what they had. So the 47s are a little bit different, but you can see the hoods and fenders and everything are almost identical. The barrel back is called that because the back end looks like a barrel and the two doors open out, barn doors. It's a 9-passenger station wagon, and that's exactly what it was. A lot of resorts in the Catskills would buy one of these to ferry their clients from the railroad station to their hotel. The Chrysler Town and Country name came up because it was felt that the car was elegant enough for town and casual enough for the country with the wood sides. Both cars have 8-cylinder engines and are grossly underpowered given the weight of the cars because of the wood. Only 15 barrel backs survived, and the reason for that is that the owner's manual required that you refinish the wood every 2 to 3 years, and a lot of people didn't. The varnish would peel off, the elements would get to the car, the wood would start warping, and the cost of repair was exorbitant. So a lot of them were just sent to the crusher. So very, very few exist today, and we're fortunate to have the 42. Well, here we are at the Flying A Garage. It needed a name for a party that was held here, and everybody in my family, with the exception of my wife, has an A name, so it sounded good to have Flying A Garage. And for those of you who've lived in Southern California for a long time, Flying A Service was a brand of gasoline, and there was a chain of Flying A service stations. Originally, I had all the cars at home, and the disease totally consumed me, and we started buying more and more and more, and we needed a place to put them. And one afternoon, this building became available, and we jumped on it, because it's about only 1.75 miles from home, so I could almost walk up here if I had to. And we designed it with the thought that, well, somebody's going to want to rent it, and how long am I going to be here? But 17 years later, I have survived, and we are still here. I've never really gone out looking for anything to hang on the walls or adorn the warehouse, as I call it, but things come to you. So if you're around long enough, somebody's going to call you up, and they have somebody who wants to sell something, or you happen to be somewhere, and if I like something I see, I'll buy it. So the neons and some of the gas pumps and stuff, I really didn't have much intention of collecting those, but they kind of came my way, and here I am. I usually don't buy anything with the intention of making money or selling. It's not a business. It's something I enjoy doing. And so that is not part of the formula. The formula is if I like it, I'll buy it. And if I don't like it, you couldn't give it to me. It's kind of like fashion. Your likes and dislikes change over time. So what you're seeing here is this point in time in my life. But I imagine if you came back in 10 years, it might look different. I don't know. And it might look the same. This room is kind of more modern cars. And there are two here that I think if we're gonna share, let's share the 1962 Carmen Ghia Type 34 Razor, and the car next to it is a 1990 Porsche 944 Turbo Cabriolet. And you would say, well, the two cars couldn't possibly have anything in common, but they do, because neither of them were ever imported to the United States. They were manufactured in Germany and shipped throughout Western Europe and some to Africa, and some to South America, but never here. You never would have found one of these cars in a showroom here. You would have seen maybe a Cabriolet. They have a S model and an S2 model, but not a turbo. So let's walk over and take a look at those cars. So when you look at this car, it's like no Carmen Ghia most people have ever seen. The nose is different, it's longer. It has a 1500cc engine, which was the same engine in the 356 Porsche. And it was an effort by Volkswagen to capture people who had Beetles but were ready for something a little bit more substantial. So this was a step-up car. Well, this is our 1990 Porsche 944 Turbo Cabriolet. I wanted one. I can't even explain to you how I learned about it. It was one of these things where you wake up at 3 in the morning and say, I gotta have one. So I started looking and we found it in Germany. Broker had it and bought it and brought it back to the United States. And pretty much what you're seeing is how I got it. We haven't really done anything to the car. We cleaned it up a little bit, detailed it. It's got twin turbos, it's a 4-cylinder, but it is fast and it picks up real quick, has a 4-speed transmission, and I like the profile on the car. I just think it's kind of neat. And I have all these friends that have Porsches and they all have 911s and all this. I had to have something different. We cannot be, you know, just another, we didn't want just another car. We want something that nobody else has. So there it is. I think if you're going to collect Mercedes-Benz, you got to have a 190 SL and a 280 SL. And then this is one of my favorite cars. It's a 450 SLC, so it has a hard top with a back seat, but everything else is almost like the SLs were. The 190 SL was purchased in Northern California and taken to the Classic Center in Irvine where they authenticated the car. It was about a 2-year process. And I won't say that they restored it, but it is absolutely the way it rolled off the assembly line, and it's a factory job. The 280 SL is a 71, the last year of the 280 SL, and that is a complete factory restoration, frame off. And I was able to pick my colors, which if you hadn't noticed, they're all about the same color, and I am a sucker for a blue car. But this is topaz, and I've always liked it. So I was able to pick the interior color, which is palomino, and the topaz. This is a car that, this is my second one. I had one and I gave it to my son who trashed it, and then came back to me 30 years later and said, gee, it wasn't as bad as I thought. I bought this at an auction for $5,500. We just cleaned it up, and we did put a new interior in it, you know, just check the mechanics out. And this is a car where I'll come in and I'll pull it out and drive it for a couple of days and put it back. It's got all of the basic amenities, power steering, air conditioning, has a sunroof, great little driving car. It'll never be shown, but it's just a lot of fun, and everywhere I take it, people are interested in it. And it's becoming, as time has progressed, more people are discovering the car, so the prices have gone up and there's more interest in it than there was. When I bought it, everybody thought I was nuts. Now they don't think I'm as nuts. This is my 1962 Jaguar XE Roadster. Interesting story. My restorer had leased a little bit of his shop to a guy who had worked on the assembly line when the car was built. He took a couple of years off and wanted to restore one, and I think his passion was to keep it, and it was going to be his baby. I saw it every time I went there, and it was all good. And one day I came up to him and I said, boy, it's a wonderful restoration. If you ever want to sell it, I'd be interested. And he, oh, no, this is my baby, and I've taken off time to do it, and this is something I always wanted to do. I said, okay, fine. 2 days later, he calls me up and he says, well, I haven't been working in 3 years. I think I need the money. So we bought the car. We've only shown it once, but it is an immaculate restoration. It's a fun car to drive. It's a little hard for a guy my height to get into it and get out, but once it's going, it's going. Enzo Ferrari said when the car was first shown at the, I think it was the Paris Auto Show, that it was the most beautiful car in the world. And the lines haven't changed. It's just still a stunning automobile. Of all the nicknames I have been called, the one that comes to mind with this trophy case is Trophy Hound. And that was given to me by a fellow car collector because he felt that I was a little too aggressive at car shows. But we started out with only this first level, and then somebody said, well, Aaron, I think you need a condominium trophy case, so we built a second one on top. And you know, you just collect all these things, and here they all are. So you can see we've been pretty active. There was times when we'd show 20 times a year, and now we're doing a lot less, but it's just stuff that you collect. Well, thank you for coming and going online and looking at this video and enjoying the cars with me. And I hope that one day, if you're in Pasadena, you can come and see them for real.
Thank you everybody for watching. Be sure and hit the like button and subscribe.